The clock is ticking, and already people are taking stock of how 2025 has fared so far. But how ready are you for the new year, especially with the new tax policy which will unfold come January 1st, 2026? Beyond it being a matter of debate, the new tax framework is no longer just going to be a policy conversation. It is about to become an everyday reality. Already, the federal government is setting up modalities towards the implementation of the new tax laws, which they say is sacrosanct. Going by the expected impact, as explained by the government, and perceived fears by some citizens about the new tax laws, experts have been analyzing revenue goals, equity concerns, and potential effects on businesses and household incomes, while also assessing its capacity to drive sustainable economic growth. But the question is, how prepared are you in aligning your income to the new tax policy? Tonight, we are x-raying the new tax policy, and our guest is Mr. Samuel Chukwu. He is the convener, National Tax Policy, and also a legal practitioner. Thank you for joining us. This is Weekend File. I'm Ruth Aguela. Before delving into the issues, let's begin with the latest developments across the country. Sokoto State Government confirms that there was an airstrike carried out by the Nigerian military and United States government in Tangaza local government area without recording any civilian casualties. A statement by the Director General, Media and Publicity, Government House, Sokoto, Abubakar Bawa, indicates that the outcome of analyses by Nigeria U.S. military authorities is being awaited, adding that the state government welcomes any collaboration between Nigeria and all relevant global stakeholders aimed at curbing terrorism and cross-border crimes in the state. Meanwhile, the state government calls on residents of affected areas to continue to cooperate with government by providing useful information to security agencies, warning affected communities to desist from visiting areas hit by explosives in order to avoid serious health implications. The Nigeria Police Force has arrested 2 notorious bandits and kidnapping kingpins linked to violent crimes across Katsina, Zamfara, Niger and Kwara states in a major operational breakthrough. A statement by the force says the suspects were apprehended on Friday, December 19, 2025, along the Kwame-Masalachi axis in Kayama local government area of Kwara State. A brand new Honda, 125 motorcycles, 500,000 naira cash believed to be proceeds of ransom payments, and 1 AK-47 rifle with 20 rounds of live ammunition were recovered from them. Preliminary investigations show that they belong to a notorious gang terrorizing 4 states and are involved in the supply of arms and ammunition to criminal elements. The federal government, through the Office of the National Security Advisor, has announced the graduation of over 7,000 newly recruited forest guards drawn from 7 frontline states: Borno, Sokoto, Yobe, Adamawa, Niger, Kwara and Kebbi, following the successful completion of an intensive 3-month training program under the Presidential Forest Guards Initiative launched in May 2025. The initiative represents a coordinated federal state security intervention aimed at reclaiming Nigeria's forests from criminal exploitation.
Our security personnel approved by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in May this year and tasked with securing forests against terrorists, bandits and other criminals. They are to engage in regular patrol and intelligence gathering while complementing the existing security forces using local knowledge in combating widespread rural insecurity and banditry. The recruits were trained in 5 different methods of combating crimes in the forest, including weapon handling, unarmed combat team, contact drill personnel, duties and responsibilities of forest guards, and convoy drill patrol. Kwara State Governor Abdurrahman Abdulrazak, while lauding President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's initiative, stressed the need for all to collectively encourage the newly trained forest guards so that bandits and other criminals will no longer have hidden place in the forests.
You're embarking on a national assignment to protect our people from criminal elements in our forests and in the entire state. You are to go all out to flush out terrorists, restore sanity in our forests, and keep our communities safer than ever before. Equally central to this program was the emphasis on ethics, legality, and professionalism, because we need to be mindful that discipline is of paramount importance to this particular core of people.
Highlights of the personal parade was the practical demonstrations by the trainees on how well they could handle weapons and fight criminals in Nigeria's forest. Aisha Abubakar Yahaya, NTA News.
After years of struggling with limited training, poor market access and low productivity, agro-entrepreneurs in Kano State, especially smallholder farmers and persons with disabilities, are beginning to see results, we hear, thanks to a targeted agricultural intervention. The closeout event highlighted how the program helped bridge long-standing gaps in knowledge and resources, empowering participants to grow their businesses within the crop value chain sector. Aisha Ubali reports.
Piano, a physically challenged agro-entrepreneur, says the support he received marked a turning point, previously operating on a very small scale as a roadside pesticide hawker. He explains that training and guidance improved his skills, boosted his confidence, and strengthened his ability to earn a sustainable livelihood from agriculture.
I have the capacity to employ people under me now, and I have a HND now.
We are also teachers now. We impact knowledge to other farmers.
Before, I used to farm on 2 to 3 hectares, but now I farm on 10 hectares.
The closeout event brought together stakeholders to review progress made in improving agricultural productivity and livelihoods across Kano State.
Budgetary allocation for agricultural sector. If you look at the trend, if you look at years, if you go back 3, 4, 5 years, you will now believe that yes, government is serious.
The most important achievement is the institutional capacity built and relationships forged, which will continue to drive agricultural transformation in Kano State.
So we want to make a passionate appeal on the federal government to please come up with another deliberate policy that would help to address the issue of inputs.
As the intervention comes to an end, attention is shifting to sustaining the gains recorded. Stakeholders are emphasizing the need for continued public support, stronger extension services, and policies that encourage broader participation in agriculture so that more people can benefit from future development efforts.
The renewed hope agenda of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is gaining strong momentum in Sokoto State, with federal initiatives delivering visible progress across key sectors. Abdullahi Umar Ilalu reports.
Sokoto State is experiencing a wave of transformation under the renewed hope agenda, a strategic drive to expand opportunities, improve infrastructure, and empower communities. For students across the state, doors to higher education are opening wider. The expanded student loan scheme NEL Fund is breaking financial barriers, offering a lifeline to the next generation of leaders and a strategic investment in human capital.
In Sokoto State University, we have joined the scheme. In 2024-2025, 4,905 students has benefited with the scheme.
The Sokoto-Badagry Highway, a project of national importance, is rapidly emerging as key trade corridor by cutting travel times and facilitating the movement of goods.
I want people to understand that Tinubu is here to do justice to the economy of this country. People should understand the agenda of Tinubu, that is to bring development, infrastructural development to the people.
For the people of Sokoto, the renewed hope agenda is no longer a promise. It is a reality, reshaping the social and economic landscape of the state. In Sokoto, Abdullahi Omar Ilalu, NTA News.
Cross River State Governor Basi Otu says the Calabar Cultural Carnival has remained a vital tool for showcasing the state and Nigeria's rich cultural heritage, thereby promoting tourism and cultural preservation. Justina Etienne will tell us more.
22 states of the Federation joined the 18 local government areas of Cross River States to tell the story of Nigeria's diverse cultural heritage at the 2025 Cultural Carnival themed Traces of Time, as Cross River State's governor represented, highlights importance of the Cultural Carnival.
This year's Cultural Carnival is an opportunity for us once again to showcase the beautiful cultural heritage of this state and indeed the country. The African man is known to dance on the city streets. European Union today are advertising and associating with what Carnival Calabar is doing with the country street arts.
When we come together, we tend to forget our different cultures. Nobody play their culture above each other.
And I'm bringing back my kids to reconnect to family, to empower people in the diaspora about how important it is to come back home with you.
Through dance, music, colorful attire, and elaborate floats, participants showcased their unique cultural traditions. In Calabar, Justina Etam, NTA News.
Vice President Kashim Shettima today witnessed the wedding Fatiha of 4 daughters of the Managing Director of the North-East Development Commission, Mohammed Al-Khali. The wedding, which took place at the residence of the Managing Director in Maiduguri, also had in attendance Borno State Governor Professor Babagana Umar Zulum, Shehu of Borno, Abubakar Ibn Umar Garbay El-Kanemi, among other people from all walks of life. The wedding was solemnized between Abba, Baba Kura, and Fatih Al-Khali, Baba Lawan Kolo and Hadiza Al-Khali, Muhammad Yusuf and Fatim Al-Khali, as well as Abdurrahman Bukar Alibe and Khadija Al-Khali. In a related development, Vice President Kashim Shettima also witnessed the wedding Fatiha of Umma Bulama Laumu and Shoaibu Abba, as well as Ismail Audu and Fatima Muhammad, after the payment of 550,000 naira each as dowry. The wedding solemnization took place at the Al-Nasser Ansar Mosque in Maiduguri metropolis, led by the Imam Sheikh Goni Umar Goni. Wife of the Vice President Hajia Nana Kashim Shettima has condoled with families of victims of the recent bomb blast in Borno State and has commiserated with survivors receiving medical treatment. Fatima Isa reports.
Hajia Nana Kashim Shettima was received at the Maiduguri International Airport by the Borno State Governor, Professor Babagana Umar Zulum, alongside top government officials. Accompanying her on the visit, the wife of the Vice President paid separate condolence visit to the affected families at their residence, where she expressed deep sorrow over the tragic incident and offered prayers for the repose of the souls of the deceased. She also visited victims who are still undergoing treatments in the hospital, where she encouraged them to remain hopeful and assured them of the federal government's continued support. Nana Kashim Shettima conveyed the sympathy of the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, assuring the victims and their families that the President remained committed to supporting them and strengthening efforts aimed to restore lasting peace and stability in Borno State and the country at large.
The reason why I'm here and to extend Her Excellency's kindness and motherly support to the families across, and I believe with all hands on decks, Borno will going to bounce back again.
The visits underscored the federal government's resolve to stand with victims of violence and reinforce ongoing measures to ensure safety, peace, and unity in the state. In Maiduguri, Fatima Isa, NTA News.
3 bodies we hear have been recovered 3 days after a fire disaster at a Great Nigerian Insurance building on Martin Street, Lagos Island. Joel Papuola has an update on the casualty report released by Lagos State Emergency Management Agency.
Apart from 3 deaths so far recorded according to Lagos State Emergency Management Agency LASEMA, 8 males, including a firefighter who sustained varying degrees of injuries, have been released after treatment at the hospital. Additionally, 3 males and 2 females with minor injuries who received first aid at the scene of the incident were also discharged. Search and rescue efforts involving LASEMA response teams, NEMA, Red Cross and Lagos State Fire and Rescue Service are still ongoing to locate other reportedly trapped victims in the affected building. Traders and residents were urged to stay away from the affected buildings, which have been severely weakened by the fire. In Lagos, Joel Papuola, NTA News.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, stay tuned so together we can x-ray the new tax policy. Thank you for staying tuned. Well, a few days from now, the new tax laws will take effect. And as the countdown continues, so the debate gets louder. Benny Adams of our business desk gives us highlight of the much talked about tax laws.
January 1st, 2026 marks more than just a new year. It marks a new deal for every Nigerian worker, every farmer, and every small business owner. The burden is lifting. If you earn the national minimum wage or less, you're now completely exempt from personal income tax. For those earning up to 1.2 million naira annually, your take-home pay stays where it belongs, in your pocket. But the relief doesn't stop at your salary. Government is redefining the cost of living. Value-added tax has been slashed to 0% on the essentials that keep us going. Basic food items, healthcare and medicines, education materials, even baby products and sanitary parts. To the heartbeat of our economy, our small businesses, the message is clear. Grow without fear. If your turnover is under 100 million naira, you pay 0 company's income tax. No withholding tax, no VAT, no development levy. Government is investing in the future. A 5-year tax holiday for farmers. VAT exemptions on solar power and electric vehicles to light up streets and move people. And for the dreamers buying their first home, enjoy tax-free on your rent and interest-free parts to ownership. From exempting electronic transfers under 10,000 naira to protecting your pensions and gratuities, this is a tax system designed for the masses. We have experts in the studio to break it down further.
All right, and we have that expert, Benny. Let's welcome convener National Tax Policy, Mr. Samuel Chukwu, and is also a legal practitioner. Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Chukwu.
Thank you for having me, Ruth, and Merry Christmas, Nigerians.
Merry Christmas to you too, but this time around we're talking tax business because in a few days, of course, the reality will come alive. For you, or rather, for the benefit of Nigerians, let's break it down, especially for the personal income tax, which a lot of misconceptions and fears, you know what I'm talking about, has been going around.
Absolutely. Thank you once again for this opportunity. The reason why it is important for us to have the right kind of information is because where you have an information vacuum, the fear that you see around is what will become prevalent. First and foremost, the new tax laws, as we call them, they are a harmonization of the various tax laws. Before now, we had a proliferation of a lot of laws. You had the Personal Income Tax Act, you had the Companies Income Tax Act, you had the Capital Gains Tax, like a lot of acts. So what these new tax laws are doing is to harmonize every one of them. So we did not just only have one law per se, we have 4 laws. However, of particular interest to Nigerians is the Nigerian Tax Act. And that's because that law is very consequential. And your reporter did a very brilliant job, and that is what we want to see at the moment. But just for a point of clarity, this tax law favors low-income earners. And who are low-income earners? Low-income earners are those who earn less than 800,000 naira per annum. But there's a certain clarity that Nigerians need to have. Even if you earn much more than that, and there's something that is called your taxable income in law. And what is your taxable income? Your taxable income is the income that is left available after certain deductions have been made. So for instance, you earn, let's say, 1.2 million naira per annum, and you have to take out money for fuel. You have to take out money for running costs and all. What is now left? I want to believe that the FIRS, which will now be the NRS, is not draconian in nature. As a lawyer, I've had certain dealings with them, and not to blow their trumpet, but the fact is that they are efficient. They allow you to have certain legal deductions if you have the documentation. What is now left is now what is called your taxable income. And permit me to say something at this point.
When you say your taxable income,
yes,
that's the part you need to break down.
Yes.
Because that's where the misconception comes in.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
And I welcome that with great relish, because it's always a very beautiful thing to pass across information. When we talk about taxable income, when money comes in economics, there's something that is known as your gross income. Your gross income is the money that comes to you without any deduction. Now, these new tax laws are not targeting your gross income. And that's because when we look at the reality that is on ground, for instance, these laws target individuals and companies. So let us assume I have a company and we get in money. The tax laws do not go after the money I have made immediately. The tax laws allow, and this is something that has been there before. Just like the chairman of the committee mentioned, that's the tax reforms committee mentioned. What this tax law is doing is not necessarily to wipe the urgent stable claim. What it's doing is harmonization and consolidation. And speaking as a lawyer, that is a very, very good part of the news, because as lawyers we know, ignorantia juris non excusat. Ignorance of the law is not an excuse. So what was obtainable in the past was that you had a proliferation of various laws, and you know Nigerians will not have the time or the opportunity to go through those laws. And what you had was that many people were now falling into the taxman's net. But what these laws have done is to bring these laws into one place, is to see how the FIRS has now been redefined into the NRS, as well as certain incentives. Are there certain concerns? Of course they are. And that's because with every new law, there will be new challenges. But we should not propagate fear at the expense of what could be.
Okay, Mr. Chukwu, which brings me to the issue of awareness. Because a lot of times when you get to have policies and not well broken down, that's where the gaps are. Exemptions are very clear in the new laws, but creating that avenue, for people to really understand, breaking it down, which is what you're doing for us right now. Yes. Exemptions on, essential items. Even here in the 7.5 VAT, it's been retained. But you hear rumors of, it's going to be increased, because people don't understand. How do we change that narrative to make people believe what this new laws portends for them?
Yes, I would start by quoting Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who was a one-time president of the United States during his inauguration in the 1930s. He said, fellow Americans, or speaking to Americans, and permit me to rephrase and say fellow Nigerians, we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And the truth is that fear does not exist in a vacuum. Fear exists where you do not have enough information. It was Francis Bacon that said knowledge is power. And so when we're talking of sensitization, and that's part of what I did with some of my colleagues, we came together and said, okay, you know what? We do not need to wait for the authorities, for the government to start to sensitize people. It is true that the government has a statutory responsibility to ensure that there's knowledge to the citizenry. But besides what the government can do, for those who have the opportunity to understand these laws, let us see it as our sacred duty to pass it across to other Nigerians. And Ruth, you notice something that is funny that's going on online. You notice that many Nigerians that may not even be affected by these laws are the ones that are trumpeting it out the most.
Exactly.
And that is because of the lack of information. And then there's something I've seen going online. You have a lot of disinformation. And this is a call to collective national responsibility. Yeah. For those who understand these laws, if you can, when you go online to make comments, make sure you're passing across the right thing. It was Aristotle that said something. Aristotle said, the more I know that I do not know. It is humility to know that you do not understand some of these things. So for those who know, for instance, it is true that the tax base has been expanded. So for instance, if I have a YouTube account and I'm monetizing my YouTube account, because whether I like it or not, the digital economy is the next big thing.
True.
I will be subject to taxation.
They're not exempt here, talking about content creators.
No, and that is why a lot of content creators are lamenting. This is because in the past, they were not used to paying tax. But for many young people who fall within a certain generational bracket, I see it as a call to national responsibility. And that's because there's something that is called the social contract theory. You cannot expect to get security from a government if you're not willing to pay certain monies. And I understand, no one likes money to leave their account. But we should empower the government to do what each should do. Another thing we should also note about these new tax laws is that it's progressive, meaning the more you earn, the more you're subject to taxation. But we can also focus on the incentives. There are certain incentives that has been rightly mentioned by your reporter. Okay. And I think those are the things that should be trumpeted so that the fear that is in the climate and the atmosphere can be doused and Nigerians can do what is right. Okay, Mr. Chukwu will also pick up with the conversation, especially with the aspect of companies, income tax, compliance, deductions, and all of that. Yes. But we have to take a break. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned. Well, a few days to the implementation of the new tax laws, conversations have heightened from all quarters, and Hingino John Adams is set to tell us what's happening in Lagos.
Important intervention at the back from Nigeria.
GDP ratio from about 6%.
He was brought in
to a more competitive rate, possibly around 18 to 20%. The new laws, experts highlight, will tackle multiple taxation and simplify compliance.
As of today, that's what we call minimum tax. Minimum tax is that if you don't make profit, you will pay tax on your assets, on your turnover. But with the coming of the president says he's not going to tax poverty. He's not going to tax the capital. He will rather tax the fruits. So from January, there will be nothing like minimum tax. If you make a loss, you won't pay tax.
There are concerns about equity and the cost of living. But experts have allayed the fears of Nigerians.
The working poor are now exempted from tax, and also the small businesses have never had this good. So by and large, it is people-centric. In any case, that's the entire purpose of government.
The current tax law is going to, one, expand the tax base, which will definitely bring a lot of people to come into limelight.
Experts believe the reforms, if implemented effectively and transparently, have the potential of attracting investment and fostering a better business environment. In Lagos, Hingino John Adams, NTA News.
All right, Mr. Chukwu, you've seen the situation from Lagos, and that applies to other parts of the country. But let's look at companies, the aspect of deductions in their income tax for small and large companies. For large companies, I'm hearing 10 to 30% deductions, and for small companies, well, they should be smiling.
I should confer you with an honorary doctorate on tax reforms because you're doing very well. First and foremost, it's good to start with what was obtainable before. Under the current Company Income Tax Act, some small company is one that has an annual turnover of 25 million. Yeah. And what that means is that a lot of companies will have fallen under that bracket, if you look at the grand scheme of things. But under the new tax laws, a small company now has, the threshold has been increased from 25 million to 100 million naira, which is good news. Yes. So it means if I have a company, I mean, I would hope my company will earn more, but if I have a company that's not earning up to 100 million naira, I have a 0% of company income tax. Then even if I have certain assets, because besides your annual turnover, we can also talk about your assets as a company. Yeah. If the cumulative amount of my assets are not up to 250 million naira, I would not have to pay company income tax. And that is good news. Yeah. The problem we've had with these new tax laws is the fact that there has been a sort of information vacuum. And whether we like it or not, as it is said, various persons with various agendas would pounce on these vacuums to amplify fears for whatever reasons they have. One other thing is that for large companies, if you have up to, let's say, 50 billion naira in terms of your turnover and all, you have a rate of 30% to pay, which is progressive in nature. But after a while, based on certain assessments, you could pay less to, like, let's say, 25%. What this tells us is this, that if you are a small business owner, and by the definition of small business owner, if we're using the 100 million naira annual turnover rate, if you don't have up to that, you do not have to worry about paying tax. Of course, you might be subject to other deductions as a personal income tax earner, right? Yeah. But besides that, as far as your company is concerned, you do not have to bother about paying tax, and which for me, it's a very welcome development. Besides that, if you're on the national minimum wage, you would not have to bother about paying tax. And let me also emphasize something as regarding the good news with these new tax laws. One thing Nigerians need to note is that in order to expand our tax base, it is important to have certain legislative frameworks. I remember back in the days, okay, I was not born then, there was a Nigerian leader that mentioned that our problem was not money, but how to spend it during the oil boom. But may I announce to us that as we speak, the world is moving away from dependence on oil. And that is why it is imperative that the tax base be expanded. What I would encourage Nigerians to do is this. You can check out some of these laws. I understand the controversy as to which one is the actual law and all, but we've gotten good news from the National Assembly. Okay. The laws are being re-gazetted and all. Nigerians to check out these laws and see what affects them and prepare their documentation. Because what these new tax laws will do is to ensure that those who have proper records have nothing to fear. Because the taxman is not a bulldog. The taxman just ensures compliance. Okay, and those who have ears, they say, let them hear, right? Hear, absolutely. So before I let you go, Mr. Chukwu, non-compliance penalties has been increased significantly. What does that say? Well, we know that in terms of penalties. Absolutely, absolutely. The truth is, when it comes to non-compliance, the role of the NRS is to ensure that those who default would have to pay for it. However, one of the beautiful things about the new tax laws is the introduction of what we call the tax ombudsman, which is more or less like a tribunal. Yeah. In other words, you're not being charged arbitrarily. You would go to the ombudsman to get to see how you can make certain explanations. And if those explanations are credible, you'll be let off the hook. In fact, what Nigerians do not know is this. We have 4 of these tax laws. 2 are already in effect as we speak. There are already 2 of these laws in effect. The other 2 are the ones that are going to take effect as from the 1st of January. For instance, the law that has established the tax ombudsman is already in effect. Meaning if you have any complaint as a Nigerian, based on the principle of audi autorem patem, fair, natural justice, and hearing the other side, fair hearing, you can take your matter before the tax ombudsman. And remember, even when they give you findings that you're not satisfied with, we live in a democracy. You can always appeal these decisions. So, my fellow Nigerians, my charge to us is this. Let us not be afraid. Right. Let us give this a chance. And even if we think it's not going to work, we can still make recourse to the courts. And at the end, Nigeria should work for all of us. Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel Chukwu. I could call you an ambassador for prosperity, for progress, because you really speak to these issues because it's a sign of patriotism. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming on Weekend. And let Nigeria be great again. Thank you. Indeed. All right. While you're spending this holiday and, checking all your balances, make sure you reserve some as you enter January for the tax. But aside that, we hear President Bola Tinubu joined all the Lagosians and tourists to celebrate the 2025 Eyo Festival in Lagos. I hear it was grand. Balaji Hakim will tell us all about it.
The Eyo Festival, which was synonymous to Lagos as its history, dated back to 1854. Then it was carried out by 5 groups, namely Adamu, Laba, Oniko, Ologede, and Agere. Over the time, the Eyo Festival has metamorphosed into an international cultural festival that attracts guests and dignitaries from far and near. welcoming President Bola Tinubu and other dignitaries, which includes the Oba of Lagos, Oba Rilwan Akiolu, to the playground of the Tafawa Balewa Square. Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu said the Eyo Festival, apart from stimulating the state economy, has also shown to be strong tools for love, culture, and unity.
We assess Lagos as a proud custodian of Nigeria's living culture, a city where traditions are not abandoned but elevated. Beyond its cultural depth, the Eyo Festival projects Lagos onto the global stage.
This year's parade by different IGA, made up of white-capped chiefs in Lagos, featured beautiful display of culture, color, and a strong transferring of cultural heritage from the old to the young generations.
The excitement of tonight will tell you, will show you the spirit of Lagos. You probably hear about the spirit of Lagos, but you don't understand it. It's comradeship, it's friendliness, it's sharing, it's loving.
The 2025 Adamu Orisha Play, also known as Eyo Festival, was staged to honor 4 prominent Lagosians who have contributed meaningfully to the development of Lagos, namely Brigadier Mobolaji Johnson, Alhaji Lateef Jakande, Sir Michael Otedola, and Alhaja Abibat Mogaji. In Lagos, Bolaji Akeem, NTA News.
Beautiful celebration there. Echo for sure, right? All right, let's take a break. We'll be back. Stay tuned. Thank you for staying tuned. You're just right on time for Sports Update. Ayo Deji, Nigeria is leading. That's the good news. I'm excited. Go ahead, Ayo.
All right, Ruth, you're absolutely correct because Nigeria is leading by 1-0, and they're up against the Carthage Eagles of Tunisia in Group C of the Africa Cup of Nations. Well, it took about 44 minutes for 2023 African Footballer of the Year Victor Osimhen to score with his head, courtesy of an assist from Ademola Lookman to give the Super Eagles a 1-0 lead heading into the first half. Well, there's still second half for them to play, but earlier, the Cheetahs of Benin Republic picked up their first 3 points after a 1-0 victory over Botswana. Now, Sadio Mane scored the equalizer for the Teranga Lions of Senegal in their 1-1 draw with Leopards of Congo, just as Carl Uche Ikpeazu scored in the 80th minute for the Cranes of Uganda, who forced Taifa Stars of Tanzania to share the spoils. Let's come back home. Goals from Emmanuel Akman and Solomon Oke earned Bendel Insurance a 2-0 victory over Kwara United on match day 19 of the Nigeria Premier Football League, decided on Saturday in Benin. Action continues on Sunday as Niger Tornadoes host Barrow FC in Minna. Defending champions Remo Stars are away in the Southwest Derby with Ikorodu City at the Mobolaji Johnson Arena in Lagos, while Eyimba of Abba take on Shooting Stars Sports Club of Ibadan. Away from Nigeria, Arsenal maintained their lead at the top of the English Premier League table after a 2-1 victory over Brighton at the Emirates Stadium, with Manchester City on their heels with victory at Nottingham Forest. Now, super sub Oli Watkins scored a brace in the 63rd and 84th minutes for Aston Villa in a 2-1 win over Chelsea as they made it 11 consecutive wins in all competitions. On Sunday, Sunderland are up against Leeds United and Crystal Palace welcome Tottenham Hotspur to the Selhurst Park in the London Derby. And just a reminder, it's still 1-0 in favor of Nigeria against the Carthage Eagles of Tunisia in the second match of Group C at the Africa Cup of Nations. Let's hope the Super Eagles will see the match through and qualify to the next round. That's your sports.
Indeed, Ayo. And let's keep hope alive, right? So go catch up with the second half while I, catch up with the weather prospect for tomorrow.
Compliments of the season and a warm welcome to Sunday's weather forecast. The northern states are expected to experience a sunny atmosphere throughout the day. Across the north-central region, partly cloudy to cloudy skies are expected due to increased influx of warm, moist maritime air. To the southern region of the country, partly cloudy to cloudy morning is expected, with prospects of thunderstorms across the stretch of the coast to include parts of Imo, Abia, Oyo, Ogun, Osun, and Edo states later during the day. With the combined effect of the influx of the warm, moist maritime air, as well as the low-pressure gradient encroaching into the country, temperatures are expected to rise across most regions of the country, with the highest temperature forecast to reach 40 degrees Celsius in Yola, Adamawa states. Stay with us for more temperature updates. I am Theodora Itu. Thank you for watching.
All right, just before we go, let's inform you, Sunday, December 28th is National Call a Friend Day. Very apt. With the year coming to a close, many people find themselves busier than usual. Now, some families are also traveling for the holidays, taking several days to go visit their friends. However, in today's society, technology has connected us more than ever before. We can instantly connect with a friend or family member thousands of miles away in an instant. The internet has made long distances and different time zones no longer large obstacles when it comes to communication. National Call a Friend Day, you must know, was established to remind everyone to take a few moments out of your busy day to reach out to that one friend you've been meaning to talk to. So while you sleep over it, identify that special friend of yours and place a call. And if your bank account is not in life support, accompany that call with some cash. Well, I should be that friend in that aspect. Well, that would definitely make the new year more prosperous, don't you think so? And of course, I want to use this moment to thank you for always being part of your Saturday Tonic, talking about Weekend Fowl. It's the last edition for the year 2025. We hope to see you again in 2026 with a maiden edition for the new year. And on that note, do have a beautiful and a prosperous new year ahead. I'm Ruth Aguele. Good night.